All right, you want to talk then?
Sure. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today we are going to be talking about how you can use DISC to support your hiring decisions. It's never used as a sole hiring decision, right? But DISC can definitely help support that process, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So my name is Amy Lipinski, and I am a senior facilitator here at Extended DISC. And with me today is Christina Bowser, our training director.
Hello.
So the session is being recorded, correct, Christina? And we will share that link. If you do have any questions, we do love to hear from you. So put them into the chat or the Q&A section and we will get back to you if we don't have time to answer it live in today's session. Because if you're on and heard us chit-chatting, it goes by fast when it's 15 minutes.
All right. Well, Amy, you did a great job because you ended exactly the same time you did on the recording. So hopefully, but again, thank you guys all for joining us. There obviously are a lot of things that help us and support our hiring decisions, right? But how can DISC specifically help us as hiring managers? We all know there's certain things we all know. The people that show up to interviews typically don't give us the most accurate and reliable information or unbiased information about themselves. And that's where the power of DISC really comes in. It has that non-judgmental, supportive information. It doesn't know that this person's applying for a job. It doesn't know what experience or attitude or skills that they have. It only understands how they self-identified on their most natural behaviors, how they prefer to do things. And that in itself gives us a lot of information, especially when it comes to hiring. So where do we start? Defining the job role. What would you say about that, Amy? What do you mean by that?
I always think that you almost have to take 2 steps back before moving forward. And that could be some of my DISC style, but I like thinking about, do I really know what I'm hiring for, right? I have to think about what does the job require? And especially when I think about connecting it with DISC, what are the behaviors that will be needed to be successful in this job role, right? So really making sure that that position is clearly and well defined, and also thinking about the behaviors themselves that will be needed to be successful in that position. What kind of behaviors are you looking for to be accomplished within this job role? And then once you have the job role defined, now let's talk about or think about, what do we want in that ideal candidate, right? How many of us really think about, we're usually going so fast, we forget to slow down sometimes, right? And we don't think about, well, what does that ideal person look like? If I could create a person to fill this role, what would they look like? And jotting down again some of those attributes, right? Whatever those behavioral attributes that this person would bring. What's most important to you? Is it important that they're reliable, that they're going to show up on time? Is it important that they're able to network and talk to people and meet people, right? What exactly is going to be the most important aspects for you when looking for an ideal candidate? What are kind of the non-negotiables, right? What do they need to have?
Yeah, I think, what's so important is not all jobs have the same roles. Even if you're looking for a manager, the roles are not necessarily the same, or a salesperson, the roles aren't necessarily the same. And where DISC is so helpful is it helps you match. It gives you in some of our report, it actually gives you a percentage match of that ideal. So by taking the time to create that job analysis, we call it, which is are the set of behaviors that define this ideal candidate, then it will show you, is this person a 50% match? Is this person a 90% match? So if you put in the work ahead of time, it actually makes your life a lot easier down the line. It is not uncommon, especially for you DISC coaches out there, for managers and hiring managers to come to you and say, okay, just tell me what style I need to hire. right? And in an ideal world, in a perfect world, wouldn't that be easy? But I always say, what if, two iStyles walked into your office? It sounds like a joke. Two iStyles walk into your office and they, and who would you hire? You would want to know more about that person, right? You would want to know, what their attitude, what their skills, what how they, show up under pressure, what their communication style is. And DISC helps give that supporting information for you to be able to make better choices. So let's talk about the tools. Let's talk about how DISC can help you, specifically extended DISC. So we have different assessments, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with like our team assessments, our individual assessments, but we also have what we call candidates assessments, and there are variations of that too. We also have managers as candidates, we have sales candidates, but they're all very familiar. And if you are familiar with our assessments, you're going to be familiar with the candidates assessment. Do you want to just highlight some of the at a glance, Amy?
Yeah, so what's great about the candidate assessment is it's a concise report and it's designed for the hiring manager. And so it's going to give you a snapshot of that candidate. So here we see Henry Hunter, right? So it gives us a snapshot of Henry. It gives us his natural style and those percentages. And remember, the percentages are the relationship Henry has with the 4 quadrants. So in this example, it's showing us he's equally comfortable with both the I and the S styles. And then what's great is it just gives us some bullet points of what are Henry's strengths. It gives us a snapshot of his communication style and really what's going to motivate Henry. So what I think about when I look at this is, again, kind of comparing it to that ideal candidate, right? It's not to say that this isn't an indicator of Henry's success. This is what comes naturally to him, right? So we don't want to make assumptions, but it gives us an idea as a hiring manager then what types of questions do I want to ask? On paper, is he a match, right? I need to find out if he's a match to this position then in real life, because on paper it looks good. And it doesn't look good on paper, but maybe in real life it is really a good match, right? What I love about the candidate assessment report are the questions that they ask.
So, it's not, what it really boils down to is it is giving you data, right? So you don't have to rely on just their resume. You don't have to just rely on what they tell you, but just like, any other supportive information that you can bring into the hiring process, being able to ask them more accurate questions that are based on how they feel right now in relating to job roles, or, questions that are relating to their natural style. So you don't have to use these questions. That's the great part, but it gives you kind of that template for where to start. So you don't ask the same questions to every candidate. You can ask very targeted questions in this interview process. So you can skip a lot of that kind of surface information and really kind of get to know this person better. So that's another very powerful thing that you can do with the candidates assessment. And this is just a highlight of it. It is, as Amy said, a very concise report. And what's great is, let's just say you went through the candidates process and you hired, one candidate from it. They don't have to retake the assessment. Now you can run development reports for them that can further enhance their ability to do their job well. Anything you would add about the questions, Amy?
As you're talking, Christina, the one thing that popped in my head was I get asked a lot, like, so at what point in the process do you give someone a candidate assessment, right?
Mhm.
And that's just going to depend. It will be kind of personal preference within your organization because there's a cost associated, right? Sometimes it's once you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 candidates. But that will just be that personal preference. And it's, again, designed to give you supporting information, not necessarily to make that hiring decision, right? But it's going to give you a lot of good information that can help guide you through that process, and especially with these questions.
And I wanted to kind of talk about real world right now. So what we gave you is just some highlights of the candidates assessment. And again, if you're familiar with our assessments, it's going to look very familiar to you. But obviously in current times right now, one of the biggest things that I'm hearing from our clients is that I've never met my employee, or our team has never met face to face, or we're really moving to that hybrid type work environment, or just straight out remote environment. So we do have, just so you know, a remote worker hiring report. So it contains the same or similar information that you saw in the previous candidates report. But what is so unique about it, which makes me very excited, is it focuses on how comfortable this person is in a remote setting, what will challenge them, what will tend to motivate them. And you can see here on this particular section of the hiring report, there's an executive summary. So again, it focuses on their most natural reaction to being in a remote work setting. So these bar graphs that you see are highlighting their behavioral strengths when it comes to remote work responsibilities. What comes most naturally to this person? What aspects of remote work support this person to keep them self-disciplined? So think about how powerful this type of information is. You're essentially setting this person up for success, right? Because I think, what was the thing you said, Amy? People don't leave
jobs, people leave managers or people, right? It's not the job or the company they tend to leave, it's the manager that they tend to leave. And I think this is just that great segue, like you mentioned. Once they've taken the assessment, you can use that data to run different reports, right? And this is that like stepping stone then into, if I hire this person, how do I start thinking then about managing this person, onboarding them, especially when they're remote, right? That just adds another layer of challenge into it. And I think these reports give us a lot of supporting information and data to help us through that.
Yeah, so it is critical as hiring managers, as an organization, to get the most accurate data possible about a person. And as hard as it is for people to apply jobs, everything is done online. We don't talk to anyone really. You're checking boxes. The same thing goes for our side, right? As hiring managers, we usually just get a resume, and we get, right now, a lot of Zoom interviews, for a lot of us. So we don't have a lot of information to work off of. And that's why these candidates reports and these hiring reports can provide so much more information. Constantly we're looking for things like, how do I get information? How do I get concrete information that I can trust? And that's where these reports come into play. So like Amy said, the great news is, there's no additional cost. It's one questionnaire for your potential employees. If you hire them, you can continue to use DIS reports based on that same questionnaire result that you have. Any last thoughts or comments, Amy?
I just always think back to all my years as a supervisor and manager and wish I had this kind of resource and tool at my disposal.
Thank you. So thank you guys all for joining us. We tried to squeeze in as much as we could. If you're interested in the candidates reports or looking at samples, you can go into your Finks account, or you can reach out to us at info@extendeddis.org. We do have another webinar coming up. If you've been following along with our 4 steps to effective interaction series, we're on step 2, but don't worry if you missed step 1, we will come back around and do it again. But the step 2 really focuses on the standard individual report. So we call it, Is This Really Me? Understanding Our Own DIS Style. So thank you guys all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.